Interest rates for fixed-term deposits and similar products keep dropping, while P2P loans are becoming increasingly attractive, because here you can still earn good, high returns with interest rates ranging from 6% up to 17% per year. Anything is possible, and our top 10 comparison gives you a quick and transparent overview of where you can currently get the best returns for your money. With that, welcome to Northern Finance. My name is Alex Black. Just like in the spring, there is once again an update this summer of our popular top 10 comparison of the best P2P lending platforms across Europe, based on 8 transparent criteria where a maximum of 100 points can be achieved in our scoring system. In doing so, we evaluate the age of the platform, the number of investors, whether an audited annual report is available, and whether the platform itself operates profitably or not, or its parent company, which is important for long-term investors, whether it is regulated, whether the key features for investors are available, such as a secondary market, auto-invest, translations into multiple languages, a tax report, and so on. Finally, we also consider the criteria of solvency and loan defaults, as well as growth and current developments, each of which carries significant weight with up to 20 points in our scoring. Altogether, as mentioned, up to 100 points are possible, and to the right of that, we always list the interest rates. If you find any of these platforms interesting, you can get an extra bonus with the link in the video description below, one that you won't get with a regular sign up. I've also linked on-site visits, of course, as well as reviews, interviews, basically everything we have, a whole lot of resources. If you want to jump directly to a platform that particularly interests you, use the timestamps down below in the video bar. And with that, let's get started right away. Let's start with the winner from the last top 10 ranking, and that is Debitum Investments. Debitum is the only platform in our comparison here that offers business loans, and it does so with 13% interest per year, which I have actually been consistently earning on my account here for a long time, very reliably and smoothly without any issues. Founded in 2018, they received a full score for H here. The number of investors has risen from 18 to 24,000 since January, an immense increase which earns them 2 out of 5 points, but I think they actually deserve even more investors than that. The annual financial statement has been audited and for the first time in 2024 also shows a profit, specifically 103,000 euros. Admittedly, that's not a huge amount, but showing a profit for the first time is definitely a positive sign. And aside from the strong growth, being able to report even a small profit is, when combined, simply a very good sign. Debitum is also regulated, specifically by the Central Bank of Latvia, and they offer all the essential features you truly need except for a secondary market, which is currently missing. As you can clearly see here, I have invested more than 10,000 euros and have already earned good interest and achieved a strong return, all without any loan defaults whatsoever. That's really quite great indeed. Here we can also see the average loan term and the breakdown by lenders. The recovery of the only loan defaults from Ukraine continues to be made very difficult by martial law in place there. For now, we have to wait and see how global geopolitics develop. But that was less than 2%. I think about 1.5% of the total capital that was invested here. And otherwise, all lenders are paying everything back perfectly, just as they should. And if we look at page 7 of the annual report here, we can see very nice growth, a very positive development. So they really get full marks here as well. So overall, we end up with a very strong 92 points at 13% interest. As already announced, I will continue to expand my investment here over the next few months. You can find the link to Debitum, several on-site visit reports, and the bonus link all below in the video description, just like with all the other platforms we're talking about today. That brings us to the biggest disappointment of the year, at least in my eyes, Estateguru, the real estate financing platform. I really had hoped for more here, that there would finally be some kind of comeback, but unfortunately that's just not happening. And it's not only because of the poor recoveries from Germany, but also because these new investors are being concealed by declaring them as inactive markets on the statistics page. Plus, the new product e.g. Grow, which strongly reminds me of Bondora Go Grow, contains conditions that are very disadvantageous for investors. But more on that in a moment. Let's start from the beginning. The platform was founded in 2014 and today has more than 160,000 investors, which is quite a lot. Full marks for that already. An audited annual report is also available, but only in Estonian, which we have now translated using Google. Finally, this time there's actually a small profit of 104,000 euros left over instead of a large loss as in previous years. But that's not necessarily for the best reasons, because if we look at the other operating expenses here, which have dropped significantly and contributed to this profit, We see in note 14 that this is due to the fact that expenses for other costs, such as legal advice, have decreased sharply, and the expenses for doubtful receivables have dropped to zero. Now, the investors are clearly bearing significantly more of the costs from the proceedings. Previously, Estateguru handled this, and the platform is regulated and has all the features you need. But if we look at the inactive markets, we see that the default rate here is enormous, and accordingly, there are 0 points for the weak recovery of these defaulted loans over the years. However, there are 5 points for growth and current development, because not posting a loss is, of course, very good. Let's just call it as it is. But the new product, e.g. Grow, is a competitor to Bondora Go Grow and Monefit SmartSaver. And in my opinion, it offers pretty poor conditions for you as an investor, especially compared to normal investing on Estateguru. That's why I won't be using it at all. Specifically, it states the emergency fund, which should pay out, is not legally obligated to pay you, since it falls into the insolvency estate and liability is limited to interest received. That is a huge issue. So Estateguru is not liable even in cases of gross errors or systematically poor lending practices, which have indeed happened in the past. That's why I won't be investing here. And I'm also continuing to withdraw my money because I've simply had far too many loan defaults in my portfolio here, and the stated return of 8% is not accurate at all. I'm letting the portfolio continue to run off and reallocating funds elsewhere. I wouldn't invest here again, but well, everyone makes mistakes and returns truly come from risk. Overall, I can only give a mere 65 points here for a 9% return at least. That's the return you get before any loan defaults. After loan defaults, I might end up with 0% or even -2, -5%. We'll see precisely how bad the loan defaults turn out in the very end and how much you actually get back or not at all. Next, we come to a much better option, Monefit SmartSaver, before we move on to its competitor, Bondora Go Grow. So with Monefit, you invest in consumer loans from the Credit Star Group across these 8 EU countries and receive 7.5 to 10.5% interest yearly. With the regular SmartSaver, you earn interest daily and can also withdraw your money at any time. Now, there's also the savings plan feature, which is really cool. So you can automatically invest more every month and build up more cash flow. It's designed to be very simple here, which I really like. And you can have the savings plan executed daily, weekly, every 2 weeks, or monthly on the day of your choice. I think that's great, and I'll be using it myself to continue growing my 12,600 euros portfolio by investing 250 euros each month. Monefit also recently increased interest rates for almost all investors from 7.25% to 7.5%. The company, founded in 2022, has quickly built up over 22,000 investors. The annual financial statement of its parent company, Credit Star, is available. They are profitable with an 8.1 million euros profit last year, which is really good for investors and helps secure returns. However, Monefit itself is not regulated, but all 8 loan originators are. All loan originators in all 8 countries are regulated. Unfortunately, a secondary market is missing here. It simply doesn't exist. This is especially annoying with the vaults, where you commit for a longer period for higher interest rates. If you exit these early, for example with 10.5% interest, you lose the interest earned up to that point, but you do get your investment back. The payment issues in 2022 on Mintos with Credit Star were resolved at the time, but we shouldn't forget that they existed. However, Monefit investors were always paid on time, and growth continues very strong. Several million euros in interest have been paid out. The savings plan is newly available, which I really like, and they are actively working on the product. Overall, things look good. 80 points with 7.5 to 10.5% interest rates, and the link to the on-site Monefit visit, test report, and more can be found below in the video description. Next, we come to the major competitor Bondora, which is really doing well. With Go Grow, you also invest here in consumer loans, specifically from Finland, the Netherlands, Denmark, Estonia, and Latvia, as you can see on the new statistics page. However, instead of the previous 6.75 or 6.5%, you now only get 6% interest, which has also been reflected in my account and results in lower earnings. Now I earn 53 cents per day instead of 59 cents as before. Founded in 2008, Bondora scores full points for its age and its incredible 477,000 investors. An audited annual financial statement is available, and as seen on page 12, profits dropped significantly from 3.3 to 1.2 million euros. However, this is expected to improve considerably next year, as this year's profit decline was mainly due to high provisions Bondora had to make as a one-off, since they now want to transition from a fintech to a bank. In direct comparison, the competition from Monefit or the Credit Star Group is clearly more profitable, it must be said, even though Bondora is more experienced and offers higher interest rates. So You have to decide for yourself which is more important to you. Bondora itself isn't regulated either, although the loan originators of course are. All the key features are in place and the platform has shown excellent reliability when it comes to payments. With the exception of a few weeks during the COVID crisis, investors have always been paid on time. What I particularly appreciate is the improved transparency thanks to the new statistics page. It finally gives real insight into loan defaults within the portfolio, something I had criticized for a long time. Now that Bondora has addressed this, it's no longer a black box, and that's a big step forward. Overall, I really like the direction Bondora is taking right now, and I think they're doing a solid job. Unfortunately, interest rates have been lowered. That's the only downside here, while Monefit, a direct competitor, actually increased theirs. So I can't give as many points. All in all, that results in 85 points at 6% interest, which is very solid, I have to say. The link to Bondora with an extra bonus and my review are linked below in the video description. Moving on to the newcomer Ventus Energy. Here you invest in various energy projects, which is something completely different from the previous platforms, and with the currently highest return on the market at 17%, plus the option of cashback that can be up to 5%. After 10 months, I have already earned 1,480 euros in interest here, including cashback, and I now have a total of 11,480 euros invested. For that, I receive 5.80 euros in interest daily, which is pretty impressive, and I'm currently reinvesting all of it here to earn even more. Of course, you can also have the interest paid out, and I am invested in numerous projects, such as the Jugla, Koldiga, Daugavpils, Dambis, Atlasa and Smeltene projects. I have personally visited all of the ones I just mentioned on site, which is why I feel very comfortable with my investment here. Ventus Energy is also very transparent with its investors. There are regular calls where new figures, data and facts are presented, and the statistics dashboard is updated daily. This is exactly how it should be. The link to the on-site videos is also in the video description below. However, Ventus is still very young and has just under 3,000 investors who have already financed more than 30 million euros in just under a year. This is also due to the fact that the minimum investment here is 1,000 euros. But it is an incredible start they have made here, a truly great success. Here on the statistics page, we can also see that less heat is naturally produced in the summer simply because less is needed. It's really cool to be able to follow this in real time, and here you can see once again the remarkable growth in recent times. There isn't a certified annual financial statement yet, since the platform is so new, and accordingly there are no profits or losses that can be reported or reviewed here. Still, with this kind of growth, I can't imagine that they won't be profitable within a year or two at the latest. With this level of growth, it would be really strange if that weren't the case. The energy sector itself is very strictly regulated, and here they follow all the requirements, but Ventus as a platform itself is not regulated. Unfortunately, there is no secondary market here yet. There is basically the early exit option, which you can use to sell to other investors, but without any premium or discount. There is also no auto invest feature here yet, and translations are also missing. There is only the English translation and a tax report. That's the only feature available here, which is of course important, but there are still some features missing that should be added in the coming months and years. Nevertheless, the payment reliability is perfect. It has to be said. So far, all investors have received payments on time, as it should be, which is not a given with such high interest rates. And as seen on the statistics page, growth here is very, very strong. All in all, that makes 52 points at 17% interest, and I expect that Ventus will score significantly more points in the future in the coming years. Next, we come to Mintos, the market leader for consumer loans in Europe. Here you can invest in consumer loans from all over the world or just from Europe as you prefer, and in addition, there are now also bonds, real estate and ETFs you can invest in here. Founded in 2024, Mintos is now the largest platform by number of investors. More than 600,000 investors are active here, making it the clear market leader in Europe. Unfortunately, Mintos is no longer profitable, as was the case last year, as can be seen on page 8 of the current annual report. A loss of 2 million euros was recorded here. This is due to more employees and higher marketing expenses, as can also be seen in note 8 on page 25 under client acquisition cost, which increased from just under 700,000 to 1.6 million euros. The platform has been regulated for years and has all the features you need. That's really nice. The liquidity in recent years has once again been very good. They have really recovered from the effects of COVID here, but are still struggling with recoveries from that period. Some loan originators like Volvo from Turkey or those from Ukraine and Russia are still causing difficulties. even though the situation is looking better now and repayments are coming in regularly. Recently, growth has picked up again, and I especially like the new bonds, which are sometimes offered by the same loan originators as the loans themselves, but with better collateral and longer maturities. I really like this because interest rates are currently continuing to fall, and I want to lock in these somewhat longer maturities and higher or comparable interest rates with good security now. For example, I recently bought the Estateguru bond here, a very good loan originator offering 10.5% interest per year over 3 years with regular interest payments. There are also currently several interesting bonds on offer, such as this one from Credit Feel in Mexico, which I have also visited in person, as well as Easy Debt Service and Jude Credit and even Mintos itself. That's something new, but I haven't found the next suitable bond for myself here yet. I really want to invest in the best loan originators here for the long term. But I'm not stressing about it. New offers come in every week, and since growth is picking up again and the bonds are developing well, I'm awarding 15 points here for a total of 75 points at 11% interest. The bonus link and review are, as always, linked below in the video description, and with that we come to LANDE, the #1 for agricultural loans. Here you invest in farmers who use the funds to buy machinery, land, fertilizer equipment and much more new tractors. Whatever they need, and you can earn about 11% per year this way. Founded in 2019, LANDE currently has only 8,700 investors and an audited annual report, which now shows a small profit of 196,000 euros. After having posted a loss the previous year, the platform itself is regulated and I've experienced more payment defaults among farmers in my portfolio than I would like, but the collateral is usually very good, as are the legal proceedings and so on. However, these can sometimes drag on for a long time, especially in Romania, whereas in the Baltics, in my opinion, the process is still more efficient. There is no buyback guarantee or anything similar here. Unfortunately, growth here is still relatively weak compared to the competition, which is also evident from the relatively small number of investors on the platform, even though the platform itself is more than 6 years old. For example, Monefit has built up 3 times as many investors in just 2 years. Nevertheless, Louisiana NDE is generally well positioned and receives 81 points in our rating. The bonus link to LANDE and a visit to a farmer are also linked below in the video description. And especially if you already have a portfolio, LANDE offers real diversification that has nothing to do with consumer loans at all. These are truly loans for productive capital. Next, we come to Swaper. Here we have a very high and reliable return of 14 to 16% per year for consumer loans. Founded in 2016, Swaper has just under 10,000 investors, which is a bit too few in my opinion for such a well-performing platform where more than 900 million euros in loans have already been financed. An audited annual financial statement is available, but not for 2024. The parent company Ventus Finance only publishes its figures relatively late in October for the previous year, which results in a point deduction here and only allows for 5 points. According to unaudited figures, however, profits rose sharply to 3.9 million euros, which is truly significant. I currently have 5,700 euros invested here, and all of that is invested in loans. That's not always the case. Often about 10% remains here in cash, which is not invested, a so-called cash drag, because investor demand is too high compared to the supply. Currently, however, that's not the case. This is what my portfolio currently looks like. Nice short maturities and currently 14% interest with up to 16% possible for a 6-month term. All features are available except the secondary market, but that's basically here too, as you can sell loans to other investors anytime, unfortunately only at par value with no premium or discount. Apart from English and Estonian, no other languages are available here, and payment reliability is perfect. Everything has always been repaid on time, and the growth in new investors looks really good, as you can also see here on the statistics page. But for such an old platform, Swaper should actually have even more investors, although they have now grown quite well in terms of their loan volume and the number of investors, as well as the loans and markets they are actively involved in. So in that respect, it's okay. In combination with the small interest rate reduction, I'm giving 10 points here, which leads to a total of 77 points for interest rates between 12 and 16%. The link and test are in the video description below. With that, we come to Viainvest. It offers consumer loans from Latvia, Sweden, Czech Republic and Romania with interest rates of 11 to 12%. Founded in 2016, there are now 44,000 active investors, and as you can see on the statistics page, Viainvest is currently growing almost like clockwork. We can really nicely track the monthly loan volume, and an audited annual report is available for 2023, but not yet for 2024. That's why there are only 5 points here. Unfortunately, an international translation is missing from the features. Apart from Latvian and English, there are no other languages available here, and there is no no secondary market where you could sell loans early. However, the payment reliability is perfect. It has to be said, every investor has always been paid on time since 2016, and the growth also looks good, even though there are no new features here. There isn't as much work being done on the platform as with some competitors. Nevertheless, I'm giving 15 points here, which brings the total to 79 points. I have invested a bit less here than in the previous platforms, as you can see, but still the investment is running really well and smoothly. And the interest rates are really good for the current market situation, I have to say. I'm getting 12% here. It's running smoothly, really nice. My full review with all information and bonus links is also linked below in the video description. Let's move on to the market leader of a young platform based in Switzerland itself, which is very interesting from a regulatory perspective. Here you can find business loans with up to 16.5% interest from all over Europe, but usually it's 14 or 15%. There are 12,000 investors active here. There have been no loan defaults, which is great to see since the launch in 2023, because Maclear covers these themselves and pays everything out to investors until they have recovered the funds. That combination with the high interest rates is really rare, I have to say, but it also makes the platform riskier than others. This isn't for every investor, but only for people who are a bit more risk tolerant. I've invested 1,690 euros here, and after deducting my investment, I've already earned 190 euros in interest, mainly with loans from the Baltics, even though the platform itself is based in Switzerland. For this reason, withholding tax is not due here, despite regulation, since the company is based in Switzerland. That's certainly attractive, and although it's been promised, there is still no audited annual report available, so there's no way to check for profitability yet. As mentioned, the platform is regulated in Switzerland and there's no secondary market, but now an auto invest feature has been newly introduced. There are no loan defaults here, and growth really does look very good, but it remains a young, somewhat inexperienced platform that still has to prove itself. This is only suitable for people willing to take on more risk. All in all, that gives 63 points, and with that we come to the last platform, PeerBerry, before we get to the conclusion and the winners. PeerBerry is a platform for consumer loans from the so-called Ventus group, which, however, isn't really a group. Founded in 2017, more than 105,000 investors are now registered here. PeerBerry has become really big by now. As mentioned, there isn't really a group behind it in my opinion, since there is no consolidated annual report, just what I consider a rather laughable blog post claiming they made 87 million euros in profit last year. So there is no consolidated annual report, no independent audit of it, basically nothing about the entire Ventus group, and that's been the case for years already. There are audited annual reports from individual lenders, but no consolidated financial statement, which for me is an absolute deal breaker. Why should I invest if I don't have an overall picture? Unfortunately, that hasn't changed. Still, a lot of people invest here, you have to admit, and that's why they're included here, because they're simply popular. The loans come from all over the world, really, from Kazakhstan to Moldova, Poland, the Czech Republic, Spain, and even more all the way to South Africa. The platform itself is not regulated, but the lenders are. There's no secondary market here, but otherwise you have all the essential features you truly need. The payment reliability is truly excellent. All loans from Ukraine were fully and completely repaid to investors after a slight delay, even though the money couldn't physically leave the country. Ventus basically paid the investors out of their own pocket, which is a very positive sign. However, growth has slowed down significantly. As you can see on the statistics page, instead of 80 million euros per month, only 31 million are being financed now, and at relatively low interest rates less than you might expect, only 8 to 9%. That's really very little considering the risk you're taking here, in my opinion. All in all, that gives it 60 points from me. And with that, we come to the conclusion of our ranking. Ventus ends up in last place, LANDE. Not because they're bad, but simply because they're relatively new and still lack some features and figures, which will come with time, I'm quite sure of that. This is my tip for the highest return, which is also the most transparent to track and manage yourself, because here you can deliberately invest only in individual projects and have access to all the figures you need. As always, bonus links and reviews for all the platforms we're talking about today can be found below in the video description. Next, with 60 points, we have PeerBerry, before moving on to Maclear in 8th place with 63 points. Just behind that is Estateguru in 7th place with 65 points. Well ahead of them is Mintos, which impressively scores a solid 75 points and truly marks the start of the exceptionally strong contenders here. Swapper comes right before that with a respectable 77 points, and just ahead of it is Viainvest with a strong 79 points. In 5th and 4th place, we then have Monefit SmartSaver with their 7.5 to 10.5% interest rates, which is where I've invested the most, over 12,000 euros. Just ahead of them is LANDE with 81 points, even though based on my asset allocation, Monefit should have come out on top here. But at the moment, Louisiana NDE is performing a bit better. Second place goes to Bondora, who have launched a transparency initiative in recent months, which has significantly boosted their rating. It's really great to see such a positive development here, even though unfortunately the interest rate has been reduced to 6%. Bondora continues to be extremely popular with many investors, and my direct comparison Bondora versus Monefit is of course also linked below in the video description if you're interested. That brings us to the winner once again, Debitum. With 92 points, they are the clear winner in our ranking, and deservedly so in my opinion, given their high transparency, high interest rates and strong growth among investors. I also recommend checking out my recent visit to the Ministry of Finance in Latvia. It's very interesting how the CEO of the loan originator LFDF was summoned to the Ministry of Finance here. The link to that and the bonus link are also down in the video description. So this is what my overall top 10 ranking looks like. What do you think? Does it fit, or would you rate a platform differently? Who is the winner for you? Let me know in the comments below. I'm looking forward to the exchange, and with that, I wish you good returns and see you next time.